Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for connecting to this webinar organized by EFFRA. My name is Željko Pazin. I'm the director of EFFRA, and I have the pleasure to start and open this webinar. We have almost 100 participants, so thanks to everybody who joined today. Thanks also to those who joined to the last webinar last week. The content this time will be a bit different, although certain things we might repeat, like general information. So we will have several speakers this afternoon. And the focus today is on excellence in manufacturing. So good quality, zero defect, excellence, competitiveness, etc. And the second topic is environmental sustainability of manufacturing activities. So this will be the focus of today's webinar. And as I said, we will start more general, just a short introduction of what we do, because we assume some people maybe are not yet involved in projects, are not an EFFRA member, or join for the first time. So we will, for some minutes, also give a general overview with which maybe some of you know, but if you participate for the first time, I think it's nice to hear this. So here's the agenda for this afternoon. So it's a welcome by EFFRA, me and my colleague Chris de Kubber, and then the European Commission. For us, the European Commission are always two DGs, DG Research and DG Connect, because these two DGs are supporting the implementation of the Made in Europe partnership, the manufacturing partnership in Horizon Europe. You probably know there are a couple of initiatives on certain areas like semiconductors or process industry, so or aerospace, etc. This is the big initiative of the European Union on manufacturing technologies, not dedicated to one sector, but manufacturing as an activity for the car industry, for the aerospace industry, furniture or textile. It's about how to make Europe competitive in all these different sectors that we are still strong. This just the historic context, what the partnership is. So it's a cooperation between the stakeholder community, so meaning companies, research institutes, technical universities. So that's what we call the stakeholders, organized under the EFFRA roof. Chris, if you can go one to the back. So on the right-hand side, and the stakeholder community cooperates with the European Commission and member states who have the power on the European Union funding. And together we discuss and cooperate and try to identify the challenges of European industry and how to overcome these challenges in forms then of projects supported by Horizon Europe and other activities. So this is done in form of a partnership. We have already some experience with this. So this process started already in FP7. So in FP7, we had the Factories of the Future partnership. In Horizon 2020, the model, this partnership model, proved to be good and interesting for all parties. That's why it got continued. So now we are in Horizon Europe in the third manufacturing partnership, which will run from 21 till 27. And now we can go to the next slide. So just to start, as I said, very general, what is this about? It's about ensuring competitiveness of European industry and especially sustainability of European industry to have an economy in Europe that is done in a way that also future generations can profit from it and live in a clean environment. So there are many political goals we are trying to achieve: competitiveness, sustainability, resilience of European industry, also strategic autonomy. So to see this got evident through the COVID crisis. So to see where value chains are under risk or where we are too dependent on other parties to fill these gaps, so that companies can source, for example, from different suppliers or different locations. So these are kind of the bigger political themes that you can see over there. And then, of course, this can be broken down in different topics, more specific regarding skills, regarding the digital dimension of our activities, etc., etc. So behind all this, there are roadmaps and many documents, and that's basically the role of EFFRA, to talk to industry and to together develop a roadmap to identify the challenges that we see for European industry today, and to then communicate to the policymaker this and this is a priority, and we should invest in these topics, and then launch research and innovation projects and help companies, especially SMEs, to cope with this situation. So if we go to the next slide, there you see a bit the kind of the historic overview, and I mentioned the word roadmap. So a lot of this work is based on roadmaps. Here you see several of the roadmaps we produced, and at the right corner we are now in the present. So the Made in Europe partnership started 2 years ago in 2021. Projects have been launched already, and we are kind of not anymore in the beginning of the partnership, not yet in the middle either. So we are at a moment to define for the second half of Made in Europe what should be the priorities. And my colleague Chris de Kuba will explain you more about this. We have a document already, but we would like to launch a consultation, and this event today is part of this. To double check with you, are we on the right track? Do we need to fine tune something? So please, participate in the public consultation and have your say in all this. It's a partnership. It's a kind of a democratic exercise, and everybody should be heard. And as I said, this is a kickoff. So that's one opportunity, today's webinar, but you can be in touch with emails with us, and especially, of course, our preference, please participate in the public consultation. Chris will explain you later how to do it, where you have the possibility to prioritize challenges or technologies and really give your show your expertise and say what you think should be the priority for the next years in terms of coverage at European and national level. So with this, I think that was my job to give an introduction. Chris, I don't know, the next slides, I think we said we will do this later. And now I give the floor to our colleagues from the European Commission, and that's Nicolas from DG Research. If you can, Nicolas, switch on your camera. I think you also had a slide.
Yes.
Exactly. Go ahead, Nicolas. Thanks a lot for joining the webinar, and we are listening to you now.
So I'm going to present briefly an overview of what has happened on the factories of the future and where we stand currently with the first Made in Europe projects. And my apologies to those of you who saw more or less the same thing last Tuesday. It will be more or less the same, but there may be new questions this time, and I hope there are several people who amongst you who did not see it last week. So let me start. So first I will present an overview of some data. You see here the data for factories of the future over the whole 7-year period of from 2014 to 2020 inclusive. And on the right, you see the figures from the first 2 years of Horizon Europe, of Made in Europe. We are now evaluating the proposals from the 2023 calls, so I cannot give you the data for those only. Let me start with factories of the future. You see the total EU funding, just over $1 billion. And in those days, they were in 2 separate work program parts, the NMBP, which was, if you like, the more physical, although I don't like this distinction, and the ICT part that was the more digital, but like now they were closely coordinated. There were 43 topics in total. 178 projects, 2,884 participations, and 1,585 unique participants. There are, of course, many participants, universities and RTOs that participate many times, and an average of 16 partners per project, with an average of 6 million of EU funding per project. The industry participation was good, 50%, and the SME participation was 30%. That is not 30% of the 50%, but 30% overall. And the proposal success rate, sorry, the percentage is missing there, was 13%, better in some years than in others. If we now turn to the first 2 years of Made in Europe under Horizon Europe, you see the budget so far, 340 million, and it's actually more than you might have inferred from the corresponding work program. And the reason for that is that a number of reserve proposals were possible to fund, thanks to surplus budget and the merits of the reserve proposals. Only 12 topics so far in 21-22, 51 projects, 850 participations, and 590 unique participants. Already quite impressive numbers. A very similar size of project. Actually, in 24 under FOF, we had several coordination and support actions, whereas we haven't any as yet, and a somewhat higher industry participation, as well as SME participation. Similar proposal success rate overall, but actually we have seen that in 2022 the success rate was somewhat higher, with a number of topics reaching close to 20%. And this is probably going to be repeated, it seems, in 2023. So we expect, depending on the topic, we expect success rates between 16 and 20%. Now, these are some of, we have asked our colleagues in HADER, the agency, the executive agency implementing that part of the call, and who are also responsible now for the legacy projects, the factories of the future projects that are still running, to take a look at the projects, the recently finished projects, so factories of the future, and find some good examples. They are by no means the only examples, and this work is continuing across the board, but these are some good examples, and I'm not going to go over each one of them, but these are clickable links, and we're going to share the slides so they take you to the project's website, where you can see what those projects did in a number of different areas. So these are all FOF factories of the future projects that are now complete. So there we look not only at technical success, but also at success in terms of successful demonstrator and prospects for the future. Now, we also did an evaluation, a program evaluation of the Horizon 2020 as a whole, not only factories of the future. And one study under that evaluation looked at the so-called light part, leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. The NMBP and ICT parts, as well as space, were under this light. And of course, factories of the future were under NMBP and ICT. Now, these are general findings for the whole of light, so NMBP, digital, ICT, and space. But of course, factories of the future was a part of it. A good 10% of all the funding projects were factories of the future. So these findings are relevant. And what we found in general is that on the whole, the light programs achieved their main aim, which was to bridge the so-called valley of death in terms of bringing technologies closer to maturity in manufacturing as well as in advanced materials, AI, and so on and so forth. Inevitably, there were some gaps left at mid-level TRLs, technology readiness levels. We found that on the whole, the stakeholders, the partners had good plans to capitalize on the technologies they developed. And this is a very important finding, that SME participants, beneficiaries, attracted over 9 billion of private funding in the from 2014 to 2022. And if you look at how much EU funding those SME participants actually got from the projects, you arrive at a leverage factor of 4, which is pretty good. Of course, this doesn't mean that every SME managed to attract private funding. This is an average. The stakeholders appreciated how in factories of the future and in other areas, knowledge sharing ecosystems were created. This is, of course, a standard finding in collaborative research. Also, the study found, perhaps not surprisingly, that the stakeholders tend to take shorter view perspectives. They tend to lose sight of the underlying policies that lead to the funding and that the funding is supposed to serve. And they also found, again, not surprisingly, perhaps, that more coordination was needed with other programs. So that could be the Digital Europe program now, but of course also the cohesion policy. And these are aspects we are working on. Now, there were some not so good examples, and of course I'm not going to mention any, but some of the key factors that can hinder success in projects made in factories of the future were related to the exploitation plan, the planning for the exploitation, and also the planning for demonstrators. So what happened in some cases was that the demonstration phase was neglected, or it was left too late. This is by no means the rule, the exception, but this is what tended to happen in projects that were less successful. The exploitation plan was not so good. In general, consortia are often, not often, always very good in terms on the technical front, but sometimes neglect the exploitation, the strategy and the exploitation strategy. Also the last bullet is quite specific. We had a number of projects on business models in Horizon 2020, not formally part of Factories of the Future. And those did not work that well because they did not include the appropriate industrial partners. So as someone has already said, these are factors that are probably easy to fix, relatively easy to fix with hindsight. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with the new topics. And now moving to Made in Europe. Here you see an overview of the topics we have had so far. So not the projects anymore, but the topics in the 4 first years of Made in Europe under Horizon Europe, and how they address the 4 specific objectives of Made in Europe. Today we will be discussing the specific objectives 1 and 2. You see here the topics in the 4 years. Some are duplicated because, of course, they serve more than one specific objective. In total, we had 20 topics, 12 topics in 21-22, and another 7+1 topics in 23-24. I say 7+1 because the last one is not formally part of Factories of the Future, sorry, Made in Europe, but it is closely related, and we developed it together with EFFRA. So there are fewer projects in 23-24 compared to the 2 previous years. Not so much because the overall budget is somewhat lower, but mainly because we now have topics with more budget that do not necessarily cover more things than before. So each and the size of the project is the same, similar. So that means that we now fund more projects per topic, and we have already seen, although we don't have the outcome yet, we have already seen that in 23-24 the success rate will be similar. Sorry, in 2023 at least. We don't know about 2024, but in 23 we know that the success rate will be very similar, if not better, somewhat better than in the already reasonable success rate in 2022. So between 15, 16% and 20%, depending on the topic. And now our colleagues in HADEA and we in the Commission continue to look at the portfolios that we now have. Many of these portfolios, several of these portfolios are of course continuations from Factories of the Future. So they're integrated, and we are looking at all projects in one portfolio, whether Factories of the Future projects or new ones from Made in Europe. Here you see a list of the portfolios covered so far, although I hasten to add that this is a partial result, partial overview, because so far, for various logistic reasons, we have the picture from one side of HADEA, the executive agency. So they have looked at around half of the projects and the portfolios so far. The more, if you like, the somewhat more physical ones, although I hesitate to use the word. So you see some key technology areas that were also identified in Factories of the Future: zero defect manufacturing, manufacturing with bio-based materials, which we're now expanding to biointelligent manufacturing, complex functional surfaces, and intelligent workpiece handling. In that last topic, which was a 2022 topic, we saw quite strong international presence from third countries, partly because we had encouraged it in the topic without making it compulsory. So the projects there include cooperation with partners from Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Also a nice result. We can see how all these portfolios are addressing our key policies, for example, circularity and digitization. And also we see something very important, that several projects lead to products and technologies that are highly relevant for the Net Zero Industry Act. So as you know, the support for manufacturing is sector agnostic. All manufacturing sectors participate, and it is in practice quite diverse. We have some figures for that, by the way. That said, we are actually getting a lot of projects that are developing products or manufacturing technologies that are fully compatible with our ambitions under the Net Zero Industry Act. And we hope, of course, that this is going to continue. We are not going to have sector-specific topics, of course, but we do trust that that the kind of products that are needed to address net zero industry, whether it be offshore power generation or catalysts or hydrogen tanks and so on, will be produced, will be enhanced through funded projects in Made in Europe. So this is all I had. I hope it was clear and reasonably useful. There will be an update after we know which projects have been selected in 2023, and we will be happy to share that with you in due course. Thank you.
Nicolas, thanks a lot for this presentation. Very interesting also to see what happened in the last years. We have one question, which I will straight away, in fact, use the opportunity. Maybe you can elaborate a bit. There's a question, could you please elaborate what you said, the demonstration phase was neglected, mentioned in the, for some projects, if you can just specify what you meant by this.
Yes, let me first of all remind you that this is an exception rather than the rule. So please don't think that this is a problem in manufacturing projects as a whole. The great majority of projects were successful, but we asked our colleagues in HADEA to look at some examples that were not successful and what went wrong in those relatively few examples. And what tends to go to be done less well is this, that the demonstration phase, that the consortium started the demonstration phase rather late with inevitable consequences, or they were relying too much on only one partner, industrial partner in the consortium, to do the demonstration. That was also one of the problems. Or more broadly speaking, the exploitation strategy was not so good or non-existent. And it does seem to be the case that sometimes this is underestimated in proposals as well as in funded projects. That's all I said. Please don't extrapolate from that. It refers to a minority of projects, but we thought it would be useful to know what goes wrong when things do go wrong. But please don't see it as a feature of either Factories of the Future or Horizon 2020 as a whole. It is the exception, but of course in R&I there are such exceptions.
Thanks a lot for the clarification, Nicolas. I would like to repeat and stress really what you said. This year is about industrial exploitation, so to showcase new technologies. So this demonstration phase is really important. There are other parts of European Union programs that do basic research or other things. This is here really higher TRL and showcasing new machines and systems, and that's why I fully agree with Nicolas. That's very important. We have one more topic, which is easy to answer. Do you consider manufacturing as a service relevant for Made in Europe? Absolutely, yes. And just look at the core topics that were published, and there you will see opportunities in this area. This was covered by the webinar last week, so you can check the slides and the recordings later to check this. Okay, thank you very much, Nicolas, for this very rich presentation. So we stay with the colleagues from the European Commission, and I would like to stress also here that the collaboration with DG Research and DG Connect really works very well, and thanks to Nicolas and Sandro and to all your colleagues for this good cooperation that we developed over the past years. And with this, I give the floor to Sandro from DG Connect.
Yes, thank you. Can you please confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, so I hope that I will be quite short. Nicolas has done a very good analysis of what we have done in the past, why it was important, how it worked. I want to show you only one slide. Chris, could you please go to my main slide? And is this, I discovered recently this strange concept of the Valery Pieris circle. So somebody discovered that if you make a circle around Southeast Asia, in less than 7% of the total, land surface of our planet, are living more than half of the population of the world. So more than 4,000 million people live in the circle, in the clear circle on the right of the map that you see. As a comparison, in Europe, we are 450 million, roughly, with a population which is shrinking. The US has a population of 334 million. It's slightly increasing, but not at the same rate as the population of India or Indonesia or Pakistan. So what does it mean from a geopolitical point of view? Is that Europe in the, in very few years can become not very relevant anymore on the world scene. And what does it mean for European industry? What can European industry do to stay relevant? Because we want a strong industry, we want that it creates good jobs, well-paid jobs, that uses the technology well for producing products which are, added value, which bring good things to consumers, to citizens, and so on. There are many reasons why we need to find a way for European industry to stay at the forefront of technology. So I will not say much. I will only ask you to think about the things that we have done in the past, things which can be opportunities for the European manufacturing industry. We as a European industry are quite strong on sustainability. It's true that in many cases it is because we have exported the problems, the pollution problems and so on somewhere else. So we don't see the sustainability problems because, for example, textile has done in this Valley Ripiris circle in Southeast Asia mostly, and all the pollution, all the problems related stay there. We don't see when we buy something from Zara or from another shop. But nevertheless, it's clear that in European companies there is a significant know-how on sustainability issues, on climate change issues, on how to make production more efficient and more sustainable. Then there is digitalization. The digitalization which was started in Europe. Industry 4.0 was invented by the German, and has been developed a lot also through our Horizon programs. We recently pushed more for manufacturing as a service or hyper flexibility that was discussed one minute ago. We mean by this the possibility of making manufacturing extremely flexible so that it can take advantage of the changing situation of the world in terms of where to find energy which is more sustainable, how to change your production flow to take into account something that is happening in another part of the world. A lot of things can be done with the manufacturing as a service approach to improve both the sustainability and the competitiveness and the resiliency of industry. Last but not least, there is, for example, the aspect of artificial intelligence in the factory. We in Europe are a bit at the forefront, at least for legislation, on artificial intelligence, because Europe is the only place in the world where there is a proposed regulation on artificial intelligence. What does it mean in the factory? Factories typically are not very nice places to work. Mostly, if you ask to young people, they don't want to work in factories. They want to do something else. Making human artificial intelligence which is designed by humans for humans, not for machines, more available in factories, like was done in some of the topics funded in the recent years, may mean a strong push towards having better jobs in factories, towards attracting more people to manufacturing, and in one thing to make a development model which includes the way in which products are produced, which is more sustainable also from a social point of view. So there are many aspects. Certainly I've forgotten something. I did not want to say everything. I hope that this workshop or this webinar will bring more ideas. But the question that we have to ask ourselves, are these opportunities that we should follow, that we should use? Is there something else that we are not seeing? What will be the next big thing that will change the way in which the industry produces? Because we know that industry has to change for sustainability, has to change for flexibility, has to change for digitalization and so on. But which are the specific technology on which we should support research? Last but not least, let's not forget the concept of strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy does not mean that Europe wants to do everything inside, everything internally. Not at all. It's completely different. European Union is and will always be open for trade with other parts of the world. But the important thing is that we are able, if needed, to be autonomous on the strategic technologies to avoid that, somebody else can blackmail us in very practical terms, saying, I will not give you energy, I will not give you the chips, I will not give you whatever you can imagine if you don't do what I like. So strategic autonomy is not something which is up in the sky, a very, very generic idea. It's something very concrete. It's making the foundation so that Europe can take the policy decisions which are the best for the citizens, not the best for what other countries in the world may want. So this is it. I have nothing else to tell you. It's just an invitation in the course of this webinar to look at the technologies not only with a short-sighted view, but with a very broad view, in trying to understand which technologies are really strategically important for the development of European manufacturing industry in the future, and how can we support them through our Horizon program. That's all from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sandro, for giving more this macroeconomic view, which was always very important for our community indeed. So this partnership is not about single technologies, I don't know, a 3D printer here or a laser cutter there. No, it's what Nicolas and Sandro presented, and what you will see now in the slides that Chris will present, reflected in the 4 specific objectives of Made in Europe. So thanks a lot, Sandro, and thanks to you and your colleagues. And now I would like to give the floor to Chris, who will moderate the second part of the webinar, and we will have other speakers there. So from my side, I say goodbye to everybody, and thanks to all the 117 people who are connected. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Željko, and thanks, Sandro and Nicolas, for already your statements. Sandro, if that's okay, I will actually close the webcam so we don't see the paused thing. Okay, right. So yes, the EFFRA. So basically the framework of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda of Made in Europe. That's what you see there. And well, main point is also with respect to what you just heard. It's very relevant. It's still very relevant, looking towards the work program 25, 26, 27, which is basically the subject of this webinar and of last week's webinar, and which is inviting you to provide us with input through the consultation that we are launching. The policy objectives, you have heard about, the need for competitiveness, strategic autonomy. We will come back to that for sure. The Green Deal, dimensionalization, clearly very relevant. We heard about AI. We heard about the physical side of manufacturing, the automation side, the smart side. We will definitely also hear a lot about the data side in some of the priorities that we will address. And there's the remanufacturing side with respect to the processes that I think for this session will become very relevant. Basically, excellence, responsive and smart factories and supply chains and circular products and climate neutral is the focus of this session. And but before going into the future priorities, there has been already some indications of where we are with the program. And when we talk about excellence, for sure, and it has been explained by Nicolas before, there's been quite a few core topics that related to the matter of having excellent manufacturing, having productivity, having automation. There's topics related to AI and robotics, the zero defect, zero waste, has a green side to it, very relevant for this session, has a zero defect side to it, also very relevant with respect to excellence. Laser-based for green manufacturing. Bio-based materials, the materials side of things, also regarding sustainability. Artificial intelligence for sustainable agile manufacturing. Data-driven distributed. So there's been a lot of weight, if I can put it like that, in terms of the call topics in the first part of Made in Europe, with respect to excellence and with respect to green. 22 call rapid reconfigurability. We heard from Sandro the need for flexibility. Products with complex functional surfaces, again, quite hardcore physical challenges in manufacturing in order to produce excellent products. Excellence in distributed control, intelligent workpiece handling. I continue, circular economy. So 21, 22, very much weight in terms of these specific objectives 1 and 2. 23, you could say less call topics, but still a lot of weight again on these aspects. High precision, complex products, again, photonics involved. Remanufacturing, factory level value chain approaches, resilience in manufacturing. The manufacturing as a service approach, also with respect to supporting the resilience, very much there. Biointelligence, so customized flexibility, again, circularity, which actually also gave us somehow stimulated us in the previous session on human and service orientation to see, you know, have these human and service orientation aspects been well addressed? Were they embedded? I can say yes, in a certain degree they were embedded in excellence and green. We'll come back to that. Is that a good approach? Should we be more complementary in terms of specific topics on human or services? That's one of the questions. Because we know, I mean, the target excellence and green is a very clear, important target. So that's one thing. Then, with respect to the portfolio analysis, that has also been indicated by Nicolas. We see that as well. So this is a screenshot from the EFFRA Innovation Portal. The link is embedded in the presentation that is made available to you, by the way, on the event article on the website, on the EFFRA website. The presentation with embedded links from last week's session has been made available. You would see this page, for instance, already in that slide deck with associated links. So feel free also to have a look straight away after this session. We will, of course, make the PDF also from this session available, and also the recordings. So this slide also indicates, when you see numbers of specific projects, the numbers in green are projects that have been associated to these research and innovation objectives from the Made in Europe call topics. Call topics have been associated to the specific and research and innovation objectives of the ESRIA in a specific way, in a balanced way, to already have a view on what has been covered by which call topics. So that's one part of the intelligence that we wish to obtain, to look into the work program 25-27. There's a lot of things going on, and we need to see what's in the pipeline. And there's actually a lot of things in the pipeline. Now I clicked on the link, which is not what I wanted. I will get back to my presentation. Here I am. And with respect to the consultation, there's a set of research and innovation priorities that we have put in a paper. I will go through them now, first in a helicopter view, and then I will give two colleagues the floor, Marco Thijs from Politecnico di Milano and Kai Peters from VDMA, to provide some further comments about specifically the excellence oriented and the green circular sustainability priorities. Overall, the document that is also available on the webpage related to the events and the associated links explaining what the consultation is about. There is this consultation document, which has a set of priorities that is written out in like half a page per priority, a few paragraphs per priority. The left-hand stack, you can consider them to be associated mostly to this session. there's the matter of excellence in terms of productive and flexible manufacturing, automation as really the enabling technology, and we need to then be more specific. What do we need in terms of automation for open strategic autonomy? Straight away, a link to what Sandra mentioned, and what also in discussions that we had with European Commission, with RTD Connect, that came to the forefront. So the matter of requiring automation for this open strategic autonomy, also automation with respect to, you know, somewhere the lack of human workforce in some areas in manufacturing, to really be able to manufacture the products we require for European leadership in certain sectors. Of course, the synergy with humans in manufacturing always is a crucial fact as well. So we need to have that balance. Sustainability in terms of the value network resilience. So there's a value network side to this. It's not all about factory automation on the factory floor. The resilience side comes in with a lot of data being associated to that. So exchanging data, being able to make value networks work with data exchange. You can call them data spaces. The matter is, you know, to have it at the right, you know, in the right approach for everybody. Could be edge oriented, could be data space oriented. The third one is a quite interesting one with respect to excellence, because it makes the link with the excellence in manufacturing capabilities being cross-sectorial. Nicolas referred to it in his intervention, that the Made in Europe partnership is cross-sectorial, and it therefore doesn't contain specific call topics, for instance, for automotive, or a specific call topic for windmill, or for batteries for automotive, etc., etc. We will need to be have a strategic intelligence in terms of what manufacturing technologies are strategic for different sectors, but also particularly oriented to high value added products. And the green tech sector is one of those sectors that is strategic for Europe, also related to, you know, environmental sustainability. So that's a particular topic we wanted to address in the consultation as well. Sustainability aspects brings us to the circularity aspect with connected manufacturing ecosystems. So that's again the value network perspective with respect to circularity. There's already a set of projects launched that will address matters like the digital product passport and related approaches to have the information collection working well for circular, not only for excellence, also for circular. The physical side of things with respect to manufacturing is then addressed by the next bullet point, the next level of circular economy through scalable, highly productive, zero defect remanufacturing technologies. So the remanufacturing processes we need for making circular economy work is an important area we need to discover further or explore further. And the other bullet point is more related to the materials. There's lack of availability of materials. There's of course a circular perspective, which makes that there are secondary materials coming in that may have may create different opportunities, maybe sometimes more challenging. So we need to cope with that. And the last bullet point is referring to, you know, energy efficiency and referring to the emission aspect in manufacturing. You may say, well, maybe that's more a process industry matter, which is maybe less a Made in Europe partnership target. But we thought it would be useful to really also put that in the priority list, also definitely also for consultation, in order to have a better feel about where is the impact we can still make in discrete manufacturing, particularly when it comes to zero emission and energy efficiency, to also capture not only the open strategic autonomy, you know, policy target, but also the net zero industry target from a policy perspective as well. In last week's session, we have targeted a few of the priorities, or the priorities on the right hand side you see there, that are more service oriented. But you know, somehow a service with respect to manufacturing when it's regarding, you know, optimal manufacturing operations. It also leads to excellence. It leads to circularity. There's a life cycle aspect in some manufacturing solutions and associated services that leads to circularity. It leads to optimal use, again, very linked to the excellence side. We addressed already some of the data space enabling side as well, cloud edge, data responsiveness, robust data exchange for robust manufacturing. So there's of course always this interlinkage between different priorities. We also addressed the human side there, basically querying for the you know, the getting information about, you know, do we need specifically human-oriented call topics? Maybe we didn't have topics like that before in the Made in Europe call topics we had up till now. There's also the human destination within the overall work program. We are aware of that. How should we cope with that within Made in Europe, outside Made in Europe? So that's a question mark there. Definitely some human aspects also relate very much in how excellence and green manufacturing works. So that's the helicopter view. Focus is on the left-hand side. There's also the matter of biointelligent manufacturing that is there, which is actually, and therefore I'm going to the left-hand slide again. And here I'm happy to give the floor to Marco Teisch, to provide us, Marcos, well, to provide his specific comments and observations with respect to what we see there in terms of excellence, and probably also the link with the green aspects and strategic aspects. So Marco, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Chris, and thank you all. I'm sorry if you hear background noise. I have an affair on automation here in Italy, and therefore that's the most silent area I was able to find. Thanks for all the presentation. Very good insight of all the priorities and all the input that we have been discussing in the workshop to prepare for today. Let me say two comments here. The first one is that this topic could be perceived as not a new topic. Discussing about excellence, productivity, improvement is something which is there for many years. And it's true if we look at the name, at the title. It's not true if we look at the way, it's not true if we look at the solutions that we have today available in order to increase the efficiency, the productivity, the excellence of our product. The customer of today, they want more. They want more product with a higher level of quality. They want products with a higher level of sustainability. They want product with their higher level of smartness and connectivity. So we need to provide better quality. That's clear, and Europe has to do that. Otherwise, the two most important competitors, I mean, US from one side and China from the other side, and don't forget India, which is coming as a new competitor in the manufacturing arena. We need to do more and we need to do better. So excellence is still a key important way to go. How to do it? We need to do it with less, and that is clear. We need to do it with less material. We need to do it with less energy. If we do it with less energy, it's not just a matter of cost. It's a matter that we are able in this way to address some of the most important requests coming from the market, from the customer of today. They want more sustainable product. We need to do it with less people. Now you will say, okay, I'm looking for creating unemployment. No, less people means less people used in the wrong way, and allow people to create a more added value with those activities that has to be done by people, that cannot be done by artificial intelligence, those activities which cannot be done by machines. So using less people is an opportunity, is not the way to create cheaper product, is not the way to create unemployment. And third, less, let me say, energy, which I said, less people, and less organization. That means we need to be lean also in the organization. The overall overhead organizational dimension is something that has made Europe not as competitive as all the others. If you look at the improvements of productivity of China and United States, is by far much higher than what we had here in Europe. I think that the way we organize factories, the way we organize supply chain is not the best one in that perspective. So less organization or less organizational overhead, I think, is also what we need to do. And that's exactly what is written here. This is exactly what we are looking with our research and innovation. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Marco, for this intervention. And with this, I would like to make the bridge to Kai Peters. So please, can you provide then some complementary observations, also touching on what Marco said? Of course, that's entirely possible, on the circular, environmental neutral sustainability perspective, please.
Yes, of course. Welcome from my side. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. A lot of things have been said by Marco already, that we need to do, the overall storyline is to do more with less, both in terms of human resources, but also with materials and energy, of course. Let me maybe look a little bit back into the discussions we had in the working groups on the circular products and climate manufacturing challenge. One word on scope. It's very clear, it has been said before, all what we are doing has boundaries, which are set by, of course, that we have to find common ground between the needs of industry, the concrete needs of industry, and research funding, which is supporting the policy objectives and the societal expectations. I mean, in this topic, I think that becomes quite clear. It's also very clear that manufacturing has a key role in achieving the objectives of the Green Deal, for the climate, for the circularity targets, because we use a lot of material and resources. This is quite clear. We have then also two, let's say, dimensions of the discussion. One is manufacturing as the user of resources, but we have also a second dimension of manufacturing as an enabler for circular solutions, for circularity, for net zero technologies. I mean, some of you might have followed the discussions around the Net Zero Industry Act of the EU Commission, and it's exactly that what we mean here. I come back later to that in a second. Concerning the circularity, it's clear manufacturing has a big role to play. What are the challenges also from the industrial point of view? I think here even more, we have to look into speed, excellence, and productivity. I mean, we have in Europe, I think, excellent systems. We have driven manufacturing quite far in terms of speed, efficiency, how to produce products in big quantities. We are much less good on the downstream side. So on the side when we have to disassemble, if we have to collect, and if we have to regain materials from this process, it's much less efficient than we are on the manufacturing side. It's a little bit reflected here in the first and second marked bullet points on the slides. The next step, of course, the best thing to do is, of course, you might know all these R's of circularity, reuse, recycle. But of course, the best thing is if you reduce the use of materials. So if we don't create a footprint at all, and this is reflected, I think, in the third bullet point, which in addition is also a contribution to strategic autonomy and resilience. Yes, I mentioned before that we have these two dimensions. Manufacturing is also an enabler, and this leads me to the fourth point. To be honest, this is a bit more difficult to catch, because the manufacturing, discrete manufacturing to a large extent is already electrified. So this is not a solution. So the climate impact of manufacturing comes mostly from if the energy use is renewable and carbon free. So still, there are a lot of energy efficiency gains to identify, and here I think we rely also a little bit on the community to identify solutions, new approaches, maybe breakthrough ideas, what could still be done in this area. And of course, not to forget, yeah, maybe not only under this topic, but also under the other specific objectives, the whole question, what kind of contribution can make manufacturing as an enabler for clean products, making these products more efficient, more affordable. I think super important that all what is, for example, included in the Net Zero Industry Act. It's not about just producing stuff, it's also about producing this in a competitive way, so that Europe as a manufacturing location for clean tech stays competitive. And let's say that brings me a little bit to my last point. As an overall, me as a representative of industry, I'm working in the EFFRA, representing the German Association for Manufacturing Equipment. What we need in research programs is new solutions which allows company better to, let's say, to cope with the challenge to be internationally, globally competitive, to increase productivity, and of course at the same time produce clean and in a way which is in line with the European objectives, and in particular with the European regulation, which is already there, but also coming up, for example, in terms of the digital product passport. So this is a little bit the picture, how we have discussed it. Of course, we are very happy to receive your ideas and your contributions to this discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Kai, for this intervention. I just would like quickly to answer a question that I saw in the question box. Does Kai have slides? No, the slide that actually you see with circular connected until solutions for energy efficiency marked in yellow, that's the slide I'm sharing now and that you're supposed to see. I see just now another question coming in. So okay, let's get to questions indeed. What about technologies to support manufacturing of sustainable products? Indeed. I will continue reading the question. Products of the future could get sustainability labels showing the level of related greenhouse gas emissions, scope 1, 2, 3, over the whole logistic production chain. It would be good to work on a global system to support this manufacturing of sustainable products. I will actually put the previous one on, because that's actually a bridge priority between, you know, the excellence and the green, if you want, the sustainability priority, this recovering and preserving European leadership in strategic and high value added products. So that's indeed a priority where in the text we describe that these high value added products particularly can be seen as products that are related to environmental sustainability, the green tech sector, if you wish. It could be products that are maybe not in the, you know, in the spotlight straight away. I mean, the products that are in the spotlight are like batteries, windmills, photovoltaic systems for energy generation. So products like that. And then the point is, okay, do we have manufacturing capabilities for these products, because these are key products? And when I refer to the fact that Made in Europe is not a sector-specific program, there I wanted to somehow say, well, there are product-specific, green even product-specific programs within Horizon Europe. There's Green Vehicle, there's Zero Emission Maritime. There's different, I would say, sectoral oriented programs that deal with zero emission. So we should not ignore that. Also, it's a matter of efficiency for Made in Europe to, to be able to select these strategic manufacturing technologies that can service these key green tech sectors. And that's somehow what was addressed in this third bullet point, also in the text, at least partially. So if Kai, Marco want to make a comment on that, feel free. I just wanted to have this slide on, which is particularly or exactly what the colleague Frans Rotzenberger is referring to. So scope 1, scope 2, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, to see, where can the difference be made with manufacturing, and particularly in discrete manufacturing. So the question is very relevant, and we're very keen to get more input through the consultation on this matter and where we can make a difference. Marco, Kai, if this answer is already covering the question enough, then that would be it from my angle. I see Marco's come back about it, saying yes. Okay, any other questions? Please feel free to shoot. If not, I'm happy to go through a set of examples from ongoing projects that I will put my camera back on. Just to say that in this portfolio of Made in Europe, also Factories of the Future, there's a lot of material and there's a lot of research and innovation either being done, being finished, or being started. And one of which here, there's a lot of data-oriented research and innovation going on, referring here to the data-driven distributed industrial environments in innovation action launched under the 21 call topic with 3 projects ready. And already, if you see the titles, European Data as Product Value Ecosystem for Resilient Factory 4.0 Product and Production Continuity and Sustainability. There actually, in the summary of that project, you see the notion of data as a product. And that's also a pointer to last week's session, where we talked about the service perspective and the role of data. But here, of course, for sure, at the service of resilience, with the matter to have distributed environments. Okay, 5G was actually a bullet point in the call topic, on this call topic, and it has been addressed by 5G timber particularly. So with a focus more on 5G. So Zero Swarm also said distributed. We see there the cyber physical production systems. I mean, there's been a few years that the notion cyber physical systems was introduced, and we see that this has been taken up also through this call topic. I see a question coming in. Chinese community is afraid about EU putting a green standards on products, assemblies, cars. So sustainable products can be a differentiation in the future. I think that's a fair statement. So it's not a question. I think it's a fair statement. So indeed, one of the targets is to see how can Made in Europe make a contribution to that part of the story. A call topic from the last call from the last call from the Factories of the Future partnership on the Horizon 2020 on quality control and smart manufacturing also has a lot of pointers with respect to how to use data for excellence. This is a bit of one of the chapters in the wave of projects that deal with quality, or you can call it zero defect. Some of the projects have zero defect very much also in the title. Data for Zero has it, InterQ. other relate very particularly to the use of artificial intelligence, like MiE, the matter of using digital twins. So data services, again, the pointer to services. So we see all these different concepts being brought in by the project. So I will come back to the two tracks of the consultation. It will be, we are very keen to have insights from the ongoing projects, how particularly these projects are seeing this. Some of them are have just started, like the batch before. These projects are actually in a concluding mode. So we're definitely keen also to hear from the representatives of these projects of how the targets should be looked at. This is a set of projects from the Connected Factories cluster, if you wish. Connected Factories was a CSA that was concluded quite recently with a final event in November, with a cluster of projects that deal with digital platform implementation. And quite a few had also a focus on zero defect, high quality project. Well, that says it all. Quality in manufacturing, zero defect manufacturing platform. So with respect to the link to data spaces and how to use data spaces in this value network or factory automation oriented perspective that we discussed, we see how the data platform concept comes in. And also with a link to standardization. There's a lot of talk about how we should be able to standardize the interaction between factories in order to do that efficient. There has been some work on the way also, or being concluded by those projects. EFFRA is another example of those. With respect to circularity, on the other hand, there was DigiPrime, part of this cluster, digital platform for circular economy and cross-sectoral sustainable value networks, which really makes a link to the data collection side of things and how to use it for circular. KICLOS is also part of this circular perspective, also touching on the human side, where Shop4CF is touching on the human side. So in this cluster, so you see a lot of work being done, or that has been done with respect to the priorities that we discussed, and how, you know, also the digital platform side came in. Just a more generic slide here, searching in the EFFRA innovation portal, simply on automation. And there, well, you see the richness in work that has been done over the past years in terms of factory automation, the link with factory automation and sustainability. Arius project is part of that story, for instance, the link to automation and the human side of things, with manual work, with factory to fit, inclusive. So also here with the actors that were part of these projects and that are currently in ongoing projects, we're definitely keen to make the link on things we can learn from for the future work program, what to do, what not to do, what has worked, what has not worked. Twin transition, artificial intelligence for sustainable agile manufacturing, going more in the sustainability side. We see there self-explaining artificial intelligence. So again, a lot of data, a lot of digital in these topics. Circular train, AI platform for integrated sustainable circular manufacturing. So building on what is being done on the digital side is very important across the board in these projects, and we need to see how to bring this further. Digital, again, digital tools to support engineering of the circular economy from the 22 call. These projects have just started, clearly pointing the way of some aspects that, for instance, also relate. Some of these projects, the clusters that I here referred are building on, you know, the asset administration shell, how to really implement the asset administration shell, digital product passport as well. So from the project that I mentioned, these concepts are being developed, and the calls that actually are being called for or that are being evaluated right now also have notions of digital product passport and similar approaches. So definitely we're keen to see what is in the pipeline also from the 23 call when developing the recommendations for the work program 25-27. Last pointer regarding the bio-based or bio-intelligent. This is referring to bio-based because we have now knowledge about the Made in Europe projects that are launched into 21 call with respect to bio. And this can help us also for the consultation to see, what are the perspectives and what are expected outcome of these projects and what can we build on. Now, there's two or different interpretation with respect to bio. There's bio-intelligent manufacturing in the document that we provided. There's a clear indication of biointelligence as being, for instance, the application of sensors in, for instance, equipment that are built on bio principles, that are built on biotechnology as such. So whereas you would see these projects from this call topic as, where you actually have the life cycle of biomass being generated and their new innovative products being composed of these new materials, and how these products then should be manufactured and probably even remanufactured across their life cycle. So there's a material side to this. There's also a more enabling technology side within manufacturing systems to this perspective of bio. Biointelligence is not necessarily is not the same as biomaterials research. So there also we're keen to have your views on these perspectives on the bio, how to see how this fits in within Made in Europe and how this would fit in beyond Made in Europe in the overall program of Horizon Europe. Some other supporting material. I talked a lot about data space. We talked about services last week. There are some videos related to the data space pathway that was done by Connected Factory CSA with some pointers to the website in the supporting slide deck. So have a look there. That could also, provide you with some inspiration to provide your view on the consultation. Another one, I'll straight away go through this view, is regarding the energy efficiency question that is raised. There is a project cluster on energy efficiency for manufacturing with projects Denim, EcoFact, Ecomation it is, yes, and Enerman. And that have actually provided a pathway similar to the data space pathway, other pathways done by Connected Factories, but then with the digital perspective to energy efficiency in manufacturing. So that has a lot to do with metrics, for instance, either first obtaining the data and then being able to use the data for energy efficiency optimization purposes. So again, a pointer to the fact that there is intelligence being built. These projects are still on the way. But also we're keen to learn throughout their development how this can have an impact in how we shape Work Program 25-27 in terms of what can be done in terms of energy efficiency in manufacturing. A last pointer towards the really very broad aspects in terms of excellence, with here predictive maintenance being one of the topics that we see a lot of times mentioned, where there's a white paper being produced by the 4C cluster, which is mentioned here. So feel free also to have a look at this material, because it's out there and it's building, the stepstones to also knowing what to do for the future work programs. Right. Then I would conclude, unless there's other questions, feel free. Summarizing the modalities of the consultation, there's two tracks. There's one that is referred to as the experts stakeholder perspective track. The other one is the project perspective track, which means that through the EFFRA Innovation Portal, and please have a look at the website where you can see the explanation as displayed also on this page, where from an expert stakeholder perspective, independent of a project, of course, you build on your experience and your knowledge. Either you're an industry organization, you're working in industry, or you're working in research organization or an academic organization or technology transfer, that you say, well, that's from your experience what is important for the future. for Europe. On the other side, we're very keen to learn from the project perspective what exactly projects are contributing to the specific priorities, so we can allocate them to these priorities. We can see their lessons learned, so to build the intelligence also from the project portfolio side. It is very important for us to also bring that knowledge in, because there's this huge legacy and ongoing work that is proceeding, and that is really filling the pipeline towards work package 25-27. So these two perspectives are the key perspectives. You have a similar way to provide your input. Please provide comments. It's not a tick box exercise of saying, you know, yes, no, yes, no. Please provide your comments. Please provide hyperlinks. Get in touch with us if there's any question about this, and then we'll help you out. I think that's it, basically, from my side. Željko, if there's any question, any other comment, we can of course take it up.
I didn't see either any more questions, so I just wanted to stress what Chris just said. Please, you know, engage, ask us if you get stuck or if you have a specific question. And if you're attending the webinar, it means we reached you on one of our 2 newsletters, but feel free to spread the word. You know, if you have colleagues in your network who are interested in this work, to build together a roadmap to well, later get engaged in projects, please spread the word and just let people subscribe to our public newsletter, or if you're an EFFRA member, to the members newsletter. So I just wanted to add this. Thanks for joining, and please spread the word that we are an open community and we want to grow, and we want to have more and more experts contributing to this work.
One matter that I didn't tell, and that we got a question about, a very fair question, is the cutoff date or the deadline. We put a cutoff date on the 19th of June. So please provide your responses before the 19th of June. I can already say we will leave it open, but for us it's an important cutoff date to have a first, you know, view on what is important. I see. Is there a question? I see a hand, but maybe it's an old hand, as we say. No, I don't see an additional question.
There's no new question. No, I don't see it. Okay, Chris, I think with this, I think it was a successful meeting. Thanks a lot to Kai, to Marco, and in fact to all the other people who worked with Chris on these documents. And we had so many meetings in different constellations. So just to say that the document that you see, this 10-pager, it's the outcome. It was a teamwork with many experts that were done, and also in cooperation with the European Commission. So thanks for everybody who contributed so far so that we reached this point where we are now. And of course, with the public consultation, we will get even more inputs and ideas. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
In touch.